Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And hey, no split screen here today. We're dudes and dudettes. We have with us Jay Crawford in a undisclosed location, man, aka the Dude Cave here.
The Bat Cave, yeah.
The Bat Cave. Well, today, when I heard the Dude Cave, man.
Yeah, it is the Dude Cave. You're absolutely right.
Amazing. It's like I'm home, all these Indians, Guardians, whatever. You're gonna have to change that. That's offensive.
No, that's staying. I've got Wahoo somewhere right over there.
Oh man, no, I didn't see it. My eyes, I see nothing. No, hey, in all seriousness, we're all excited for all the new decorations that we can get, right? Sure.
Absolutely.
Cheers. New Cleveland baseball team name. How about that?
Oh, here you go. Right there.
Oh man. Oh, brownie.
These coasters were a gift from my producer at Channel 3. So you got the Browns, the Cavs, and the Indians.
Those are retro too, because it's got the Wahoo on.
Yep, absolutely. I'm collecting Wahoos now.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing.
Well, I mean, they're collector's items, right? I've got a pillow in the other room that says Cleveland Indians founded in 1901. And I'm trying to find somebody, like, I don't know, a seamstress or somebody to embroider on there, killed 2021.
Yeah.
They're dead.
They're dead.
The Indians are dead.
They're
I
dead.
mean, no matter how you slice it.
As they say, they gone.
He gone. They gone.
He gone.
Yep, that's it.
Oh, man. Well, hey, I've got a platform out of Cleveland here. We have Cleveland whiskey here with us.
Tell me about Cleveland whiskey.
Cleveland whiskey here out of Cleveland. We got this one at Green Road Liquor over in Macedonia area. But no, it's $28, Black Reserve. They do a pressure cooked bourbon. They don't age their stuff for 10 years. They age it, then they pressurize it.
Now, what does that do? Speed up the aging process?
They get a 10-year age in weeks instead of 10 years.
Well, that's revolutionary.
It's revolutionary, and if people hate it, because it's technically bourbon, because it does enter a bourbon barrel.
But it's cheating according to the real bourbonites.
The purists are infatuated with bringing them down. But
yeah, well,
hey,
power to them. They figured something out. Technology. I mean, what the heck?
Everything's better in Cleveland except our coaching for the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, my God. You just hit a nerve.
Yeah, we did. So let's talk about the Browns officially out of playoff contention. Thank God we can just finally give up the false hope that we've had for the last 8-10, I don't know.
But it was, you know what?
It was fun, though.
It wasn't like a car accident and you're dead on arrival. It was like you were in a car accident and you were taken to the hospital, and they treated all the superficial wounds, but then they called the doctors in and said, oh, he's got an infection inside. We got to open him back up. Mm-hmm. And then they went in and they flushed you out. They cleaned you up. And then you were just about to get out of the hospital. And then another doctor came in and said, we just found out he has a collapsed lung. It was that slow, drawn-out death that if you really think about it, if you really get down to it, we knew at week 5, probably, that this team wasn't going to,
when that Lebron got,
they are who we thought they were, and that's not very good.
And they didn't let us off the hook until week 17.
Yeah, I know. You know what though? I am surprised that it worked out that way. I thought that all of those crazy scenarios were going to come true in week 16. And then in week 17, we would beat the Steelers. And what I figured would happen was we would lose on a missed extra point, and then the game would go into overtime against Cincinnati, and we would lose on a safety to the Bengals. And to be eliminated from the playoffs.
Yours was more optimistic than mine, because it's funny because we are Browns fans, because
that's where mine stink.
McLaughlin was going to go down, sink the 32-yarder to win it. Oops, Taylor called a timeout. Next one doinks off the left upright.
We've seen that act this year.
Yeah, we're actually known for stopping double doink himself.
I know.
Parker last year.
It's horrible. It's just horrible. And I think the worst part about it is when you think that your organization has turned the corner, the excitement level, particularly when you're in the cellar for 20 years, the excitement level is through the roof. But now we find out it was all fool's gold. Yep. It was fool's gold. So what Kevin Stefanski was able to do last year was to devise an offensive scheme that teams weren't prepared to stop because they hadn't seen it. But when you put a season on tape and you give 31 coaches the opportunity to study that tape and to game plan against that scheme, now is when it really tests a coach's ability to coach.
Yep.
And the 2 stats that I will give, which are petrifying.
Oh, we love stats because you can't argue against stats.
No, they're numbers and they don't lie. So he was he was coach of the year last year
as a rookie coach.
But when the league had a chance to figure out what he was doing and to beat it, he's now rolled 7-9 out there. And it likely, I don't know what the Bengals are going to do. I don't know if they've announced whether they're going to start their starters. I mean, they can still get the 1 seed in the AFC. What? I heard that today, and I'm like, wait, how is that a thing?
I missed that story.
But I heard that the Bengals are still in line to get the overall number 1. Well, if that's the case, you got to play everybody.
Yep.
So I don't know what they're going to do. I'm expecting a Browns loss because I know Baker's not going to play.
Burrow also got jacked up during that last play. So them
He
clinching,
did.
do you give him that extra?
Yeah, I know. But I'm wondering, too, how jacked up. Like,
I don't know. It was last play, so he walked off, and he knew he didn't have to come back
right.
on.
He knew that he would be done.
He was able to really – he got roughed up. I
but,
mean,
you know,
as we watched the horrific events unfold.
It's on the NFL Network, the replay.
It's a beautiful screen. It's great quality photo.
Yeah, but
of course, crystal clear, so we can watch it in high def.
What's on there right now is absolutely sickening because the Chiefs are about to go up 14-0.
Yeah, this is when we're like, come on, Rams, come on.
I wasn't worried about this game.
I didn't even watch it.
I had another flat screen in here, and my son and I were watching the the Bengals on the projector, and on the flat screen we were watching the Rams, and I'm like, the Rams are going to screw us.
Yes.
And then OBJ comes out. I'm like, this is karma. OBJ just made the biggest play of the year for the Browns.
My tweet was exactly, so much irony just happened.
Oh, it was unreal. It was like the epicenter of irony. And then the Bengals came back and closed the deal. So back to my Stefanski point.
Yes, Stefanski.
He's probably going to finish 7-10.
More.
Which
at this point, we want it. Just get a couple.
Well, yeah, at this point, I mean, and let's face it, we're not beating anybody. And the state that we're in, I feel like this whole thing is about to be ripped apart at the seams.
You think?
What we had last year. Well, I think there's a big rift in the locker room that most people don't know about. And I think it all goes back to the OBJ divorce.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys were picking sides. Are you Team Baker or are you Team OBJ? And I think that Team Baker was probably less populated than Team OBJ.
Yeah.
Who's the team leader?
Should be your quarterback.
It should be. And I think he wants to be the leader. But
I mean, Myles Garrett should be the leader of this team.
But he's not that personality type.
He's not alpha. He's an alpha physique, but he's not an alpha presence.
No. And so, first of all, the fact that neither one of us can say for sure who the leader of the team is, that's a problem.
I thought it was a trick question. You knew the answer to.
I would say, if I had to say somebody, I would say Jarvis. Going back to the Hard Knocks, when you got kind of look behind the curtain, and you could see that these guys respond to him and they gravitate to him.
Yes.
He hasn't spoken since Thanksgiving.
He's been awfully quiet.
Well, what does that tell you?
He was Team OBJ. You would think on paper, and that makes sense.
Yeah, but I also think that
brotherhood.
He's a smart guy, and he's not going to go out and do an interview if it's going to make him look bad or if it's going to be controversial. Because to Jarvis's credit, when he does an interview, he says real things. He doesn't speak in jockism. He doesn't, it's a really big game. We got to go out there and, give it 110%.
Got to execute.
Take them one play at a time. He's not that guy. He's going to answer questions thoughtfully and honestly.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, he's just decided to lay out. And the fact that we haven't heard from him is pretty telling about the state of the team. He doesn't want to make it look like he's rolling on Baker. So he's just laying in the weeds, being quiet. But his absence to me speaks volumes. So you're going to have a 7-10 football team after an 11-5 and a playoff win a year ago. And everybody's trying to blame pie comes into exist when you're on the wrong side of 500. And everybody's like, well, it's Baker's fault. No, it's Stefanski's fault. It's always the buck stops at and starts at the top. And Stefanski did a horrible job of developing a second pitch.
Yes.
He had a great pitch last year and got a lot of guys out with it. But in the offseason, they looked at the tape and they figured out what he was throwing and how to hit it. And unfortunately, Stefanski never developed a second pitch.
Yes.
He kept throwing out there the same game plan, which was way too pass heavy. And in the last game at halftime, you're running against the 32nd ranked rush defense when it comes to yards per carry.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield threw 15 times for 58 yards.
Mm-hmm.
They ran the ball 8 times for 50 yards, and Chubb saw it 4 times. And Stefanski at halftime was asked by Lisa Salter of ESPN going into the locker room about Nick Chubb, why was only had 4 carries. We're trying to get him his rest.
For what? Next year?
What are you resting him for? Meantime, later in the broadcast, 2 stats were thrown up by ESPN. I thought they did a great job with this. At 13:45 in the fourth quarter, they put a stat up that said when Nick Chubb is on the field, the Browns are averaging 6.3 yards per play. When he's off the field, they're averaging 1.3 yards per play. He was on the field for as many snaps offensively as he was off it. 50% of the snaps. A few series later, they show a stat when Pittsburgh has the ball that says Najee Harris has been on the field for 85% of the Steelers' offensive snaps, which leads the NFL. And we got a running back that can run circles around Najee Harris.
That we're paying a lot of money to run
circles. To wear a coat and watch the most meaningful drive of the game, which came early in the fourth quarter. It's finally a 13-7 one-score game. The defense forces Big Ben 3 and out. They get great field position. The most critical drive of the season, or of that game, because they had no playoff chance, but of that game, and they kept showing Nick Chubb on the sidelines with the coat. And at one point, my former coworker, Louis Riddick, was on camera, and he was like, just throwing his arms like, what's going on?
Did you watch the Manning cast?
That was even better, because they're like, can somebody get me an injury report on Nick Chubb?
Yeah. Why I was sitting there with like a play calling sheet the whole game, because he was just like, and then he might as well just went ahead and just threw it. Nobody knew.
But I'll tell you, in 1 year, Stefanski kind of went from this up-and-coming whiz kid head coach, kind of a laughing stock. He was ridiculed by everybody for what we saw on Monday night, and by the way, rightfully so.
No offense to Ray Charles, but even he could have saw what was going on with that problem of Chubb not being in the game there.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist or a football coach to figure it out. There was one play, we had a triple tight end set, and all 3 were on the left side of the line. And our rookie backup offensive lineman was lined up one-on-one with the guy who's probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year this year in TJ Watt.
It was.
Watt just sacked Baker Mayfield again. It's just now happened.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is we have Bill Callahan, who's like this offensive line guru, and I know he had a rough year, but you wonder how much he's got in it. And like, and just like Brown's luck, we finally get a guy that's the best in the business at offensive line. And he might just say, I'm taking my ball and going elsewhere because this is not a situation.
That's my fear. You know what my fear is? Honestly, my fear is that guys like Nick Chubb, if I'm Nick Chubb, I'm furious.
Yeah.
Look, you didn't pay me all this money and bring me here to wear a coat in the biggest drive of the game against our rival.
The rival.
And
the game.
He's been underutilized or misused all season long. They cannot figure out what to do with them.
You think he was angry? Look what he did to that poor defender in the fourth quarter.
You know what? He was running like, I'm going to show them I can put this team on my back and carry. That, by the way, was probably the best single stiff arm I've seen by a Browns player since Jim Brown.
I mean, that's up there with Derrick Henry's on.
It is up there with Derrick Henry's.
The Coastal Carolina, Josh Norman.
Oh, my God. He owned him.
But
he literally picked him up off the ground. His feet were off the ground.
He killed his soul in midair.
So does the defender.
Yeah.
It was a thing of beauty. And you've got that guy in a long coat on the sideline. And you know what he finished the game with? I think he finished with 12 carries. 12 carries. So the only logical explanation, and I could be wrong, I think they tanked.
It's
the only thing that
get him hurt for next year.
And let's finish 7-10 and let's get a better draft pick.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with that. This organization has proven they can screw up a high draft pick just as much as they can. Now, recently, our draft history has been phenomenal.
Andrew Berry's earned some respect from Browns fans. I will say
I think he's done a tremendous job. JOK, steal of the first round, steal of the draft last year.
He would have been a killer first round.
He would have been a great first round pick.
He might be defensive rookie of the year.
He's been an absolute animal. He's been a tremendous asset to this defense. I think next year, you got to get wide receiver presence. You absolutely have to. But I think at some point they're going to have to take a quarterback, or they're going to have to sign a Mitch Trubisky. This notion that you can bring in A-Rod or maybe even Russell Wilson is ridiculous, because Baker's on the books for $18.5 million unless you trade him. And you're not going to – who's taking Baker Mayfield? He's damaged goods right now. He's coming off the shoulder repair. And I don't know that you'd find a dance partner on a trade with and they tried to trade OBJ last offseason. I don't care what they say publicly. They tried to trade him.
And
there was no dance partner, so they were stuck with him. And then they finally realized we'll cut our losses and release him. You cannot do that with a quarterback because you're now going to have to, unless you draft one in the lesser rounds and you're paying him nothing, you're stuck with 2 quarterback salaries that will kill any cap.
And I don't know about everybody else, but I am over the Charlie Frys, the Brady Quinns, the Brandon Whedons, the Deshaun Kaisers. Like, we have a number.
What about Johnny Manziel? You over him too? I am.
Why?
Somebody texted me this week and said,
we haven't thought about Johnny Manziel in 2 years, and you just manifested his presence back.
You know what? Somebody texted me this year during the Steelers game when Baker was 0 for 10 at one point. They said Baker Mayfield is a sober Johnny Manziel.
Oh my! Shots fired.
Start thinking about that. He's got that punk attitude.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a fan of the team he's playing for, you love. But what did Ohio State fans think of Baker Mayfield when he planted the Oklahoma flag in the Block O?
I mean, it was offensive.
When I saw it, I'm like, this guy's a punk. I hope the Browns don't even think about drafting this guy.
Tony Grossi was all over that take.
What? All over what take?
Of
that same
that
thing?
he was another Johnny Manziel out of Oklahoma.
Well, I know, and Tony kind of got
a lot of trouble.
blasted for that.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated.
I'm still not ready to give up on Baker Mayfield. I'll be very clear on that. I still think that we've seen the best that he can be, and we've seen the worst that he can be.
Right.
But I think this year, and he hinted at this in his post-game comments, and this is very true. This year, he is a victim of the Stefanski blandness and rolling out the same game plan, thinking it's going to work 2 years in a row.
Right.
You've got to add wrinkles. You've got to change things up. You've got to keep things fresh. See Andy Reid. That's all you have to do. The guy recreates his offense every year. He throws in new wrinkles. He throws in creative things that are immediately duplicated by other teams. Nobody's looking at this Browns offense.
3 tight ends because he's going to completely redo his offense and look at him.
And now, all of a sudden, the position of tight end has been rejuvenated.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think my blame pie is the larger portion goes to Stefanski. I think a lot of Baker's troubles this year can be twofold. One, he was in an offense that guaranteed his failure. And all you have to do is look at the tape on Monday night when they continually had him dropping back 5 and 7 steps with a rookie tackle against probably the defensive player of the year. That was a setup, folks. I'm sorry. You don't do that to someone that you care about because you're putting him on an island with a target on his chest. And how many times did he land on his left shoulder?
Oh, I watched.
That was hitting him from that side, crushing that left shoulder 3 times. I saw that.
I guess the question is why? Why kill him? To make their life easier, to justify it to the fan base that's getting more rabid,
I don't
thirsty
know.
for blood.
I don't know what
it makes zero.
Because I can't imagine that he's that inept as a coach.
You can't think that he would purposely do that to the first decent quarterback. And I will say decent. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. Baker, I hate to tell you, folks, look at his AFC North record the last 3 years and name the last quarterback that's done that over a 3-year stretch. I'll wait.
Yeah, I know. It is impressive.
He wins the games that we most want to win.
But a lot of folks then would say, just take a look at his fourth quarters. So in the fourth quarter this year, the Browns are outscored 2-1.
I will say
now that is problematic.
He has done himself zero favors.
But you know what?
In multiple situations to be the guy.
And you know what? Though, as I look back on it, the Stefanski game plan that we saw on Monday night, that's his brainchild. That's his offense. He wants to be the big shot offensive play caller. That's all on you. There's no offensive coordinator in the mix as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Baker was unsuccessful in the fourth quarter because the plays we were calling were either predictable or not going to work in that situation. I know that everybody wants to see Baker play his best in the biggest moments, and we have not seen that yet. And we saw that from him at Oklahoma. We did. There were a lot of moments where he rose to the top when he needed to. He's done it a handful of times in Cleveland. But I'll tell you, there was a moment against the Packers when it looked like, we've got a chance.
Yep.
And we had a group of people that I was watching with here.
Tough game.
And I said, in a full moment of honesty, can anybody in this room right now raise their hand and say, I believe Baker's going to drive this team down the field, score a touchdown, and win the game?
No.
Everybody at my house said, I don't think it's going to happen because the track record has proven it's not going to happen.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
And it didn't happen. And it didn't surprise me. It surprised no one here. And so that outcome is becoming far too predictable. You've got to play your best football when it matters most, and that's the fourth quarter. And the Browns are being outscored 2-1 in the most important quarter of any football game, and that's the fourth. They're a good team that sticks around and plays well enough to beat anybody they play, with the exception of maybe one or two games this year. I think the Arizona game, they were blown out.
There was no chance in that
But
one.
every other game, I can show you one or two plays if it goes the other way. Instead of sitting here at 7-9, I can easily give you a scenario where this team is 12-4.
Yeah.
And so what this team needs is an offensive coordinator who is strictly in charge of installing the game plan with the input of the head coach. But once the coin is flipped, it is his steering wheel.
It needs to happen. If Stefanski doesn't give up that, then that's all we need to know going into next year.
If the Browns don't insist that he gives that up, I don't know I can continue to pour my passion into this team. And I've said that at various times of my 50-plus years of fandom. But I'm telling you, the older I get, the more valuable my time becomes. And I know it's only 3 hours once a week, but those are 3 hours I'll never get back.
Oh, my God.
And it's punishment. It's punishment. And so the definition of insanity is when you keep doing the same thing but expect different results. If they allow Stefanski to continue calling the plays next year, I'm not saying I'm done as a Browns fan. I'm just not going to watch with the same passion and interest. I'm not going to go to the games. I'm not going to wear their gear because I'm supporting the same kind of thinking that led us to an 0-16 and a 1-15 in back-to-back years.
I don't want to go back to it.
We're not going back there. But
by the way, Hugh, good luck at Grambling.
Oh yeah, right. All Jimmy Haslam has to do is pick up the phone and call his good buddy Peyton Manning and say, Peyton, what do you see? What are you seeing? There's no greater football mind, as far as I'm concerned, who's not in coaching right now than Peyton Manning. Peyton was laughing at what the Browns were doing.
Did you see when Baker came out with a 1-10 stat line? And the stat line's up there, and you're waiting on Peyton to see the stat line.
Yeah, because
he's talking, he sees it, and he looks, and you just hear him go. And you knew he didn't want to bury Baker.
Right. Well, it's a quarterback.
And all he goes was, ooh.
Yeah, because it's not good. Mike Polk, who I work with at Channel 3, did a commentary the day after the game, and it was tremendous. And at one point, he goes, in the piece, he said, Baker had 10 straight incompletions. It's almost impossible to be that bad.
It's when you're doing screen passes.
You're going to complete one of those 10 by an accident. And they didn't.
I hate that and on that note, I hate that the whole he needs to be taller take. I tell you what, folks, I have never seen a quarterback's height exploited more than what it was on Monday night.
Well, the Steelers learned firsthand.
3 steps back on the line.
You don't even have to rush. Because a batted ball is the next best thing to a sack, really. I mean, you're not getting negative yards, but you're guaranteeing the pass will not be completed, and you give yourself a chance for an interception.
A lot better chance.
And there was the one shot where Watt blocked it, where they had words after the play, and he probably said, "Are you really that dumb? You think you can just throw the ball over me?" Watt gave a phantom presence as if he was going to pass rush, but he was just reading the eyes, and when he saw Peyton cock, he threw his arms up, and it was candy from a baby.
Yeah.
And so last year, Baker was at his best when we got him off his spot and we rolled him out. And because he can't throw from a pocket. Yet Kevin Stefanski had him trying to be a pure pocket passer all night, Monday night. Straight 5-step drop, look, sack.
Dead.
9 sacks. 9. That is an embarrassment of colossal.
I mean, let's just go ahead and say 10.
And you know what? And here's the crazy thing. Ben's lost his fastball, clearly, but he's with an offensive system that realized real early, actually late last year, but made the adjustment early this year. Ben, you got 2 seconds to get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
So they changed their offense. They didn't go downfield at all against us Monday night. They didn't try. They didn't need to.
Right.
What did he throw the ball? 60 times? He 2 steps out, 2 steps out. Everything it's happening on schedule. And with Baker, it's Done.
No, it's
yeah. I mean, it's and so the Steelers, and this is what I talk about with coaching. Coaching is making adjustments, and we're not doing that in the macro season to season, and we're not doing that in the micro at halftime. That's why we're getting wildly outscored in the second half of games and ridiculously outscored in the fourth quarter, because the other team has figured out what we're doing and they've made adjustments to stop it, and we are not making any changes at all. We're coming out saying we just got to execute better, boys. I got to call better plays. I'm done with that excuse, by the way.
Yeah,
I wasn't good enough tonight. I got to be better. I'll be better next time.
It's the biggest cop out. It's like, come up with a different cop out. If you're going to give me a lazy,
change
if you're going to be a lazy take giver, like give me something to sink my damn teeth into. All
change
right.
the song.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about something very positive, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers and potential and should be Rookie of the Year Evan Mobley and their ascension, and maybe about some guy called LeBron, maybe trying to figure his way back into here. We'll see what Jay's got to say about that. We'll be right back after these messages on the Dude Network. All right, we are back. We're done talking about depression, sad.
Finally.
Hey, new Cleveland. New Cleveland. We got a new Cleveland Cavs team, baby.
We do.
We're back. Are we all the way back?
No, because I thought we were, and then what we'd lose 3 out of 4.
It was Rubio's fault and his bum knee.
Yeah,
Don't come
I
on
know.
Rubio. You got to be excited with the core of this Cavs team.
I am very excited with the core of this Cavs team. It's young.
Yes.
And it's homegrown. And by that, I mean, obviously, we didn't go out. The only time this team has ever had success is when we were lucky enough to draft the hometown king.
Yes.
And then when we were blessed enough to have him grace us with his presence with his second tour of duty.
Yeah.
And he decided to come back. And that's really the only time this team has ever had any real playoff success. But I'm excited about this group because I do feel like we could be on the verge of something special.
Yes.
And I know it's, every time I say that to someone who is a fan of another team, they scoff and laugh and say, you're kidding yourself. You're being naive because this is a league of big 3 free agents teaming up to win championships. And that ain't happening in Cleveland. And they're right. It's not. But I saw what Milwaukee was able to do. And I think Milwaukee did it with an unbelievable stroke of genius and strike of lightning in a bottle with Antetokounmpo. And I'm not saying that we have, Mobley's not Antetokounmpo for sure.
No,
but
could be.
He's a great piece with a lot of upside, and he will get better. So I'm not going to just say there's no chance that the Cavs can make a title run at some point with this core group. Obviously, the challenge is going to be keeping them all here.
Yeah. And here's what I like about Mobley. He's a big guy. He can shoot the 3. But he's tall and skinny, and you wouldn't think he's got any post-game moves, but he'll drop step and double-handed on
He is not afraid to go to the rack.
He's going on big 5s.
Yeah,
he's going on like Jared Allen type men.
I don't know if they still lead the league, but as of like 2 weeks ago, the Cavs led the league in dunks.
I didn't know that.
I know
Mobley was almost leading the league in every defensive category, not in rookies.
Yeah, no, which is everybody.
As NBA players.
I mean, that to me is
blocks, shots affected per game, and blocks per game.
It's astonishing, and it's even led to some whispers in NBA circles. In fact, I read a piece about 2 weeks ago that said the worst kept secret in the NBA is that LeBron James wants to come back to Cleveland.
Do you want him?
Listen, when I heard that, I'm like, nope, don't want him. Don't want him. This crew we don't need him. He's going to screw things up if he comes back. But then I just, he's still LeBron James. And the point, the juxtaposition was, it's not just, first of all, the author said that he was enamored with this current group of young talent in Cleveland, and that he has great respect for them and sees that they've got a lot of upside. So, all LeBron does is look for a place where he can win.
Yeah.
He's a front runner. I mean, I hate to say it, but
he feels he's put in his time. And then we can all say with the teams he had in Cleveland, which were at his own demise. Everyone keeps forgetting he blew up the salary cap his own by crying every time.
That's right.
No one talks about that. But I think he's earned a right to say, I'm going to be picky where I ride out my career.
And I don't blame him.
I mean,
he wants to collect rings, and who doesn't? Because ultimately
that's afford to be.
And he's being who he can afford to be. So my initial reaction was no. But then you start thinking about it, and you're like, man, let's see how he would fit in. You start thinking about how he would fit in with this crew.
Mhm.
You know, could Mobley still be Mobley? Absolutely, because that's not what LeBron does. You still have Kevin Love, who's had real flashes of brilliance here throughout his
best overpaid sixth man in the history of the NBA.
Well, yeah, it is what it is.
30-something million. You better get your butt off that bench and sink 6
The other night
he
was playing like he wanted to earn that
paycheck. I will say,
I didn't see that a lot last year.
He's got a pep in his step because he sees something worth his hard work and time.
Yeah, which last year he did not.
I mean,
it was evident by the inbounds play that was just had everybody going, wait, what? How much does he make?
That was viral.
Yeah, I have changed my thinking as I sat around and gave it a little bit more thought. I would ride with LeBron one more time. I'm not saying it's going to happen because who do you give up?
That's where I'm at on it.
Yeah,
because I keep hearing Okoro, and I'm like, you do not give up Okoro.
Yeah, I don't think you do either.
Here's my take: Okoro is the most important piece of this core.
Oh, really? I would still say Mobley is.
Nope. He is the Swiss Army knife, and look at Okoro's win WAR for the month of December.
Right.
He was negative one game for the whole month of December, wins above replacement at negative 20, and he went 0 for 8 that game. Every other game in the month of December, his WAR was double digits and better, up to his no lower than 12. And then
but he's out now, right?
He might COVID wiped I don't know, but either way, if he does it, he's important.
Yeah, no, he is. But if you're the Lakers, you're going to want pieces.
Give him Sexton.
I would give up Colin Sexton for sure.
In a heartbeat. He's already said he doesn't want to sign the 5-year deal in Cleveland.
Yeah, I would give up Sexton.
I bet he would go to LA and sign the 4-year deal, 5-year.
But you're going to need more parts. You're talking about LeBron James.
You got the extra first-round pick from the Celtics next year.
You do have that.
And you have your own first-round pick.
But I don't think the Lakers are interested in gathering picks.
They give him Sexton and 2 first-rounders, and you got a guy that in NBA owners don't have the leverage they used to.
I just don't think that's going to get it done.
You need more. But I'm
LeBron
saying
James.
You can't give up.
And by the way,
you can't give up more than one piece of your 4-man young core.
Well, they're going to want more than one.
Well,
and here's the other thing.
And they can deal with a disgruntled LeBron that'll cry his way out of LA.
Well, that's the other thing. And he's already doing it. Did you see last night he refused to take a jump?
Yeah, go figure. Not LeBron.
I was just
Mr. Team Player of the Year.
I know.
We're talking about bringing him back. Come on back. Teach these young guys how to really treat a locker room. Come on back. We'd love to have you.
He comes with a lot of baggage. But he's given Cleveland their only
Louis Vuitton baggage.
Yeah, that's true. It's very high priced baggage. He gave Cleveland its only pro sports championship in my lifetime, major pro sports championship.
I agree.
So I would ride or die with him one more time. And
is that a curse of Cleveland more? We've had LeBron James for how many years, and we got one banner. That's how hard it is to win in Cleveland.
It's unreal.
Ladies and gentlemen. For everybody not watching in Cleveland, welcome to our world. Pit of misery. Dilly.
If you know how big Lake Erie is a great lake. It's a huge lake.
Yeah, it's big.
A lot of people don't know this, realize this. It was actually formed on the tiers of Cleveland sports fans.
Yeah.
That's how it was filled. Because it used to be just a hole in the ground.
That's why the saline content's a little bit higher than up in
Sure.
Huron.
Yeah,
well, exactly. That's Detroit. That's really salty.
Yeah, that's true. But we've got our own.
Who's got it worse, Cleveland or Detroit fans?
I'd still rather be from Cleveland. Live in Cleveland.
That's what you are saying, that Detroit would be worse to cheer for.
I mean, the Tigers have won the same number of World Series that we have since 1985, because their last one, I think, was 84. Right?
Yeah, they got there.
No, they got there.
They got there with Miggy, but they
got there too. When they signed Miggy to that big deal, I told a very good friend of mine's a Tiger fan. I go, "You guys just sealed your fate. You're going to be bottom feeders.
It's like the Reds with Joey
not
Votto.
Too distant future. Yes, you're going to be bottom feeders, because when you write that $30 million annual check to one guy, it is organizational suicide.
Small market.
If you're the Yankees, you can write more checks to dig yourself out of those holes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was like, we gotta do, whatever you do, don't let Frankie go. And I was saying, whatever you do, don't give Frankie that kind of money.
What do you do? Get whatever you can.
Well, with first of all, they mishandled that whole thing. They knew at least 2 years in advance there was 0% chance they were going to keep him.
We could have got more than 3 shortstop prospects.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, his replacement had better numbers than he did at about $35 million a year less money. So a deal like that sinks an organization for a decade.
Yes.
You're done. And especially in a market like Cleveland. That's why you don't see markets like Cleveland and Milwaukee. And when they do, Cincinnati and Detroit, Votto and Miggy, it is like just putting up a sign you're in a submarine and you're putting up a sign that says, place torpedo here. This is where we are. Come and get us. And the Miggy deal I knew was going to sink Detroit for a decade, and the Votto thing in Cincinnati.
And you would think, and that was already out there, already aging badly when you signed the Miggy deal. Like that was already, proof was in the pudding that it's not a good formula for a small market.
Especially team. With a guy with, and I hate to say this because it does make it sound like it's armchair quarterbacking. But at the time, I remember we debated this on Cold Pizza and First Take, and I said, we were talking about whether or not this was a good idea, and I said, look, Miggy's body type, combined with the fact that he's already had back injuries, like the ticking time bomb was going.
Yeah.
And the fact that they would agree to give him that much money over that length of time was just dumbfounding.
Wasn't it like the owner getting like really old? And
he was,
and he went all in.
And he's like, I want to see a World Series before I die. So the corporation probably bankrupted itself.
Yeah.
And he was the Little Caesars magnet. He made all of his money selling
I still see a lot of signs on with lights. So I don't think the family's going broke.
No, they're doing okay. But
build a new arena.
Little
Caesars Palace.
It's never good to operate a sports franchise on emotion.
Yeah.
So on one end of that spectrum, you have the Dolans who are holding on to every dollar that they can.
I don't even want to know if I want to get down
I should have never brought that name up. But
do you want to see me go off on a rant? Let's keep going down this road.
That is now look, they've done more with less. When you look at the amount of money that they've spent and the number of games they've won over the last decade, every team in baseball would love to have a return on its investment like the Indians have. Now, the Indians haven't closed the deal. They didn't win the World Series. But when you look at the number of wins and the number of division titles they were able to get for the money they spent, no team in baseball can. Maybe I guess the Rays can boast that.
I mean, can we at least get like an aging veteran with a name to like? I'm tired of the Dolans crying poor. They don't bring in any names that make me want to go. I'm sorry, I don't want to go watch Greg Gallen at center field. I mean, I don't. I don't
when the window was open.
Rosario, was that one of the shortstops we got? Like, I can't even tell you the whole starting nine because we have squandered a 5-year with Jose, Frankie. We had that whole lineup. We had the World Series. We had another.
We had the pitching staff with 3 Cy Young winners.
We still have a pitching staff.
Yeah, the pitching,
and we have done nothing. No. Like we have squandered an 8-year playoff window in a weak division.
I'll tell you, it's because I think the Dolans are cash poor. I think they're sitting on an asset that's worth $1.5 billion.
Well, I'm glad they finally.
They don't have a pile of money. Well, that was out of necessity.
Yeah.
They proved last year when what was their payroll? $44 million, dead last in Major League Baseball. They made no signings. They kept saying, we're going to take the Carrasco and the Frankie's savings and we're to be patient. Well, we waited and we got nothing. The team overachieved. It was still, but the reason he took on this partner is so he can help write some of the checks. So now Dolan can write 65% of the check and the new owner can write 35% of the check, and at least gives this team cash infusion to where they can go out and put together a competitive roster. It's my guess, and I hope I'm not being overly optimistic, but it's my guess that when the business of baseball resumes and the strike is over, the first thing you're going to see in a hopefully relatively short order is that the Guardians have signed Jose Ramirez to an extension, to a new contract.
He deserves it.
Long overdue. The most, and I challenge anybody to tell me otherwise, the most underpaid superstar.
He is.
And he is the superstar. When you look at his numbers and what he's done over the last 5 years, he is the most underpaid superstar, not in baseball, but in sports.
Yes.
And the Indians may have to overpay him for the next deal and the back end of his career, but this man has deserved it. He's earned it. They bamboozled him on a team-friendly deal that, quite frankly, when they signed it, I'm like, oh my God, what is his agent doing? What is he doing?
It was genius.
It was genius by the Indians because they got him. They fooled him.
He had a 3-month hot streak, and they capitalized on it. And he was like, "What if I don't come off the next year on a hot streak?
Or what if I get hurt?
What if I get hurt?"
You know?
And then I waited.
And so we saw the money that was there. What was it, $44 million or
we're
something?
Seeing a trend with that Latino market of these, like the
they want the money.
Albies.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Like, give me the
money.
$2 million. That's more money than my family ever could have possibly dreamed about.
You're right.
It's my family.
It's generational money for them.
But it's highway robbery.
But the agents that get involved will start telling these players, and they have with a number of the big name Latino players, but they agents get involved and they say, no. You're looking at $44 million. Be patient. I'll get you $130 million. And they could have. Jose Ramirez is in that ballpark.
Yeah.
If Jose Ramirez was to have been paid $20 million for each of the last 5 years, that's not out of the realm of reasonability. When you look at some of the guys that are making $15 million in Major League Baseball, this is a triple crown type player. A guy that can be in that discussion for a triple crown.
And if he didn't have
an MVP quality player.
If he didn't have a bunch of Ahmed Rosarios batting around him, he probably would be a triple threat.
We saw even last year when he didn't have the protection in the lineup, he still put up really good numbers.
So imagine what if.
What if is right. What if. So, I know.
Imagine him on that 95 with like the loft and the Tomey, the Manny, like having that
Tomey was
around him. Baerga.
No, Ramirez was hitting in the 8 hole for part of that 95 season.
That was pre-roids. He was a contact hitter then.
Unreal.
Oh, we can say that.
We can because it was.
I think there's a lot of documentaries about his steroid use.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's any secret. We all know without knowing the guys that were doing something.
I think it was actually talked about in that documentary Juiced.
And his name, I believe, was on the report where the players agreed to. No, it was the Dowd report.
Yeah,
the Dowd report.
The senator did it. Yeah.
What they did was they told the players, "We want to give you this test, and we're just going to sign a number. There's not going to be any names to it." Psych. Then it got leaked, the number that corresponded to the names, and there were like 100 some players on this Dowd report that tested positive for the presence of HGH and steroids, and they were told that this information was never going to be released. And so the mistrust between the players union and and Major League Baseball runs very deep. But baseball, of all 3 sports, baseball is in for a real rude awakening in the future. Its hardcore fan base is dying.
I was just going to say, is Rob Manfred the worst commissioner
worst I've seen
in the history of ever?
I don't know that I've ever seen a commissioner that is worse. I don't have a lot of use for Roger Goodell.
Somebody that makes Gary Bettman of the NHL look like a poster child, like a good guy. That's how bad Rob Manfred is. At
every turn, he makes the wrong decision, a bad move. I mean, the Guardians are in existence right now because of Manfred. Period.
Yeah. Well, he bought the name with the All-Star weekend.
Yep.
Came in, he's like, I tell you what, if you get rid of this, I'll bring you another All-Star, even though it's not your turn for
Barry
10
Chief
years.
Wahoo and get rid of Indians and you'll get the All-Star game. Meantime, Atlanta probably made a very similar deal. They got the All-Star game. And then they go, you know what? We're going to ride on with the Braves. Now, I'm fascinated by the whole baseball pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta. And this is going to be a wild conspiracy theory. I have no evidence to back this up.
You have the best conspiracy theories.
I will remain convinced until someone can prove to me otherwise that this is wrong. I think that the Braves and the Indians were the 2 organizations that baseball had identified were the Redskins of baseball, even though the Redskins are far more offensive than the Indians and the Braves.
Yeah.
I believe that Manfred wanted to get rid of the Indians and the Braves, and the deals that he made was Cleveland, you get the All-Star game, and Atlanta, you get the All-Star game in either the next season or 2 seasons later. But we got to talk about the names of your team. We we want serious negotiations. So the Indians, I think, as a goodwill gesture, they killed the chief. Remember,
I think it was
they killed the chief.
I think it was a money move.
Well, I think the payoff was you're going to get the All-Star game. And there's a lot of money that goes along with that. And maybe there was money involved. I don't know.
You said yourself, Golans are cash poor.
Well, they are. They are.
And that seemed very fishy to get a big blank check for an All-Star weekend.
Yeah, you're right.
A money generator. Then it's like, by the way.
But then they closed the deal. They didn't just kill the chief. The next year, after the dust had settled, we're going to look into whether or not this is a good idea. The next year, they killed the Indians. So Major League Baseball's power play and crowbar of the Indians worked.
I keep forgetting this was a 2-stage stripping process that I was walking.
Yeah, it was slow. They slow rolled it.
Boy, it's like a Browns fan.
But exactly. But with the Braves, what was fascinating to me was I think the Braves had those similar discussions with Manfred and said, you know what, we're going to take that under serious advisement. But the Braves had some backbone. And instead of caving to Major League Baseball's demands or real strong requests, I think once the All-Star game was locked and loaded in Atlanta, they were like, you know what, we're good. We're going to rock on with Tomahawk Chop, which is far more offensive than anything Indians fans ever did.
Yep.
And we're going to remain the Braves because that's what we've been and that's our identity. And we're not about to rebrand ourselves because the Uncle Ben's and the Aunt Jemima products that did probably have a little bit of buyer's remorse on doing that right now because their sales, both products, you're changing the structure of who you are and what you are. And they never reached out to the fan base. They never talked to the season ticket holders. I'm fascinated to see what happens to attendance this year. How many, because I've talked to a lot of them personally that said, I'm done. I won't go to another Guardians game.
That new owner better come in with some money.
Well, let's see what happens because if they roll out a cheap product that loses, their attendance figures are going to be last in the league.
That's why I can't believe that. Like, I hope that this new owner coming in is a necessity because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, this is a train wreck. Everybody hates the name.
Yeah.
You let Roberto Perez go. You brought no one else in. You doubled down on all the prospects that haven't panned out. And now you're going into a strike. So now the strike's going to hurt you.
Yeah, sure.
So you're bitter about the strike. You're bitter about the name change. You're bitter about a loss of talent.
It could be a disaster.
So they better come out. That 35% better buy some. Yeah. And I think it's going to be okay this year because there's going to be a lot of veterans coming off the strike that are desperate for a home.
Yeah.
And I think you can
get a good core is still solid.
Yes.
But I think back to the Braves, I think the Braves just said, you know what, we gave it some consideration and no. And so then you got this Georgia voting bill passes.
Yeah. I turn to politics to cancel something.
You've got people in the state of Georgia recommending boycotts in Atlanta over a bill that passed through the legislative process. I mean, if you don't like it and enough people don't like it, elect new politicians and get it overturned.
It's the American dream.
But instead, some very vocal political voices came out and said, we should boycott the All-Star game. Well, the next thing you know, Major League Baseball, who, by the way, is already unhappy with the Braves because they feel that they got swindled.
Yep. Nobody does
now all of a sudden, Major League Baseball says, yeah, we're going to take the All-Star game and we're going to move it out of Atlanta. Now, who does that hurt? That hurts Atlanta local businesses, which, by the way, are more than half of Atlanta local businesses are minority owned. Mm-hmm. So now you're hurting the local Atlanta economy, pulling tens of millions of dollars in instant revenue out of Atlanta.
Airbnb revenue.
Airbnb, hotels, restaurants, taxi drivers, everybody suffers because baseball decides to move the All-Star game because of a bill that went through the legislative process and passed in the state of Georgia. Whether they like that or not, when does it become standard operating procedure for baseball to get involved in politics that deeply? So then we're going to move it. Do they move it to Baltimore, which has a very strong minority community, or Washington, D.C., which has a very strong minority community, or do they move it to any number of cities that have strong minority roots?
They didn't.
They move it to Snow White, Denver, Colorado.
Home of the snow bunnies, ski bunnies.
Which has, I believe, 8% African-American
How many people know this? Because I didn't know that.
Well, I'm just watching these dominoes fall going, wait a minute, you got to be kidding me. They're going to move the All-Star game this close to the All-Star game over a political bill that by the way, the courts have looked at it and said, you may not like it, but it passes the constitutional standard. It is law, and it was voted into law by people that Georgians voted into office. So that's the law of the land. But Major League Baseball in Midtown Manhattan is looking at Atlanta, and I think that they had an axe to grind with the city.
Yeah.
And I think that they saw this as the political climate in the country was right to do it. And they made the move. And at the time, there wasn't a great deal of backlash over it because a lot of people look at the law as being overly restrictive for voters. And a lot of the opponents of the bill said that it's actually going to make it harder for people to vote than easier. But in reality, the hours that you could actually vote were extended.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of things that it just reeked of politicism.
And we know how you feel about bringing politics into sports.
They don't belong in sports.
You're not a fan of it.
It's my bastion where I don't want to hear about politics. I'm done. This country has politicized a deadly pandemic. What are the limits to what we're going to politicize? So you politicized all sports.
Sports are supposed to be there so you don't have to listen to politics.
It's my break from reality.
Golly.
It's my break from reality. I don't want to hear about Democrat or Republican when I'm watching a football game. I don't want to hear about it. Yet for some reason, the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball have just embraced bringing politics into sports.
And a lot of the media carriers of sports have started to bring the politics.
A lot of the media companies, not just sports-based, but media companies in general have embraced politics. And I will tell you,
like your outlet, you used to watch the sports centers to not hear about it, to just watch sports.
But
highlights.
Now they're all spewing their opinions about political things. Like, I don't really.
Can I just know
who won?
Who's going to be the rookie? Who's going to be MVP this year?
Yeah, don't tell me your own. Particularly, I had a hard time working at ESPN my last few years because the political landscape had become so obnoxious with people that were hired for their sports acumen were espousing on political viewpoints, oftentimes underinformed or misinformed. And whether they were right or wrong, that's not, I watch Meet the Press if I want to hear about politics. I've got a million other channels I can turn to. And I was watching this train wreck happen in super slow motion. And I just kept saying, what business model would knowingly embrace the idea that you're going to piss off half of your consumers?
Hey, the Dude Network does not talk about politics.
No,
we want 100. Nor should we want 100% of all dudes and dudettes to be satisfied.
Yes, and that's the escape. And ESPN was all in on a political landscape that, at a time when our country was more divisive than any time during my lifetime, I'm seeing that division in sports coverage. I don't need that, and a lot of people didn't need it, and a lot of people cut the cord, and a lot of people just turned the channel because that's not what they go there for. Right. And I think, in the last couple of years, I think they've moved away from that political feel.
They had to.
And I think
ratings weren't going that well, Jay.
Well, you have to the ultimate. It's look, any business it's a meritocracy. At the end of the day, you can say you're about something, but suddenly if the business model tanks, we're not about that anymore.
The dollar's got to make sense.
It's all about making sense.
Dollar's got to make sense.
And I think they're probably most vocal political voice, probably Jamel Hill.
Yeah.
And she got her start on Cold Pizza. And I watched her career take off from the ground and go like this. And I like Jamel, but she was just inflicting so much personal damage that finally ESPN was like, we've got to cut bait here because it's become too divisive. And I think they've moved away from that for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll still hear something on the left or the right that an ESPN person does. And I'm just like, please leave that at home. Please just talk about the winners and losers. That's all I want.
You know who's losers? Guardians fans that have Dolans as owners, as the franchise gained another $200 million in asset worth last year.
Yeah.
Poor Dolans.
It's like you have a winning lottery ticket that is in your back pocket, but you can't cash it in.
I can't wait for the next two. This deal they made with this guy out of Philadelphia, I can't think his name off the top of my head, but I know he's involved in a Flyers organization, the Sixers. We have to wait 2-3 years for him. No, 5 to 6 before he becomes majority owner.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm not. That's a long time.
I know, but it's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I just hope that it happens before that, where they're just like, listen, like.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Ego gets in the way, and I think that was a big part of the Dolan deal.
Well,
he likes being the majority owner.
Well, and Dolans they had to make this move because the last guy they had to do this, he was wanting the team, and he goes out to Kansas City, spends all the money,
sure,
gets all kinds of guys in, trades for Xander Bogaerts, and brings in all the dudes.
That should have been Cleveland.
And then and we're watching the guy that took his money and went out to Kansas City, so we can only hope this guy does the same thing.
Yeah,
here.
I will say my cousin works in this organization, the new ownership group's organization. He was very involved in the negotiations with the Indians to close this deal, and he couldn't speak any more highly of this new group, ownership wise, doing it the right way. He wants to be a good owner. He wants to be a majority owner, but he wants to be a good owner. He's going to spend money. And I think I'm very optimistic that the Indians are going to make some waves once the business of baseball gets back and they're allowed to make some signings. I think they're going to bring in some real talent, and we're going to see if this thing can fly again.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope so. Well, Jay, I appreciate you, dude.
Absolutely, man.
Always a good time.
I'm a dude, and I'm a fan. And I told you, we'll open up the man cave to the dude show, and here we are. And
it's lovely.
I found out that you have a logo and a shirt that you gave me. So
yeah,
man. The Dude Network is like, I'm in. I'm all in.
I can't wait to see it.
I'm an affiliate.
Yeah, you are. You are a brand ambassador. You are a OG dude.
That's
it. I don't even know. I'm just making up.
I'm still wearing my Hey Dude shoes.
Hey,
which, by the way, I can't believe Hey Dude isn't your title sponsor.
They just don't know yet.
Hey Dude,
they are.
If
they
just
don't know it yet.
This is unbelievable. But
look at this. They don't even smell, folks.
What does it say?
It smells like raspberries and buttercups.
Hey, dude. Oh no, these are brand new, and give them like 3 weeks, they'll smell. But it's an unbelievable shoe. I've got 3 pair. I'm a big boater, and they're great for boating. They're great for any summertime.
Are you a yachter, or are you a fisherman, or what do you?
I used to be a fisherman. My parents had a boat when I was young, and we used to do perch and walleye on Lake Erie. But now I'm a cruiser, and I'm more into the island hopping and just enjoying the beaches and the water. And it's an unbelievable natural resource that we're lucky enough to have here on the North Coast. And I spend all my weekends on my boat, and if it was warm enough, I'd spend all my time on my boat.
Well, anybody who wants to sit there and talk shit on Cleveland and say that it's a trash hole, they've obviously never spent a day on the shoreline.
And they've never been here.
They've never been.
When I was at ESPN, I used to get all kinds of grief about, Cleveland is the armpit of America and all this nonsense. And I loved it when there for a while, Cleveland was really in the national stage on a regular basis. We had the NBA finals were here for a number of years. We had the All-Star game was here. The RNC was here in 2016.
Drafting of Johnny Manziel.
The drafing of Johnny Manziel.
Which was a big deal.
It was a big moment.
We were national media.
Yeah, but we would dispatch 50, 100 people from ESPN to Cleveland for the NBA finals and for the 2016 World Series. And everybody, all of my coworkers would come up to me after 2 or 3 days in the city, and they would all say the same thing. They were like, dude, this place is unbelievable.
It really is.
This place is amazing. And that's why I always say when people trash it, I ask them, how many days have you spent there? And let's talk about, I'll have an educated conversation with someone who's educated on what they're talking about.
Is there a better food scene?
See, for the size of the city, I don't think there is. Yeah. Like, you can go to New Orleans. New Orleans is amazing. New York obviously is amazing.
Overrated.
Memphis. There's a lot of cities that are amazing. But I think the food scene in Cleveland is ridiculous. Now, COVID really hurt it. I think we lost a lot of establishments that were, those 5-star kind of places that were run by real restaurateurs. But it's coming back. It will bounce back. And yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, they called the 4th really downtown scene, the Lebronomy.
Yes,
so it was
a real thing.
It was a real thing. When he came back, you saw the resurgence again of all of those businesses that are around the Gateway area, and they're not the same.
Yeah.
They're not the same after he left. And so the Lebronomy, this Lebron economy that you heard so much about during the years that he was here, that was a real thing. And I talked to a number of business owners and restaurant operators that will say that his leaving Cleveland left a real void, a real dent, because you not only knew you were going to have 41 complete sellouts, but you also knew that you were probably going to get 16 or 14 home playoff games. And, so if you get 40, but you also get 16 playoff games, you've just increased your inventory by 40%.
So these restaurants,
so if you were making
$10,000 a night,
so if you were making $4,000 a night, you can now make 40% more than that. You can make $5,800 a night. And so over the course of 60 home games with the playoffs, that makes a real difference. And there's still obviously events downtown that draw people in, but LeBron was the magnet that made it all happen. And his leaving Cleveland left a far bigger void on the economy and that area than it did on the actual sports scene.
Right.
And I don't know how you duplicate that. I will say, when the Sherwin-Williams operation opens downtown, you're going to see a transformation in downtown Cleveland that we haven't seen in our lifetime.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be spectacular. They're already working down there. They're building the underground parking garage, and it's a massive space, and it's going to employ thousands of people who will now be looking for housing downtown. That's why you're seeing a housing boom downtown. There will be new businesses that crop up, and that area of town right there by Terminal Tower and that whole area is hopefully going to see a huge transformation, because when you bring that many people to an area for work, a number of them will say, I don't want to travel to the suburbs every night. I want to find a place down here and live down here. So if they live where they work, you're going to see a lot more dollars flooded into that area, which would mean, more economic growth and more progress for our city.
Yeah, and that's going to be fantastic. And speaking of progress, on that note, let's take a look at the bright side of things coming in. We got a new owner. Dolans are going to be gone.
Yes.
We have the Cavs. They're back.
Yes.
All the way back, close enough to be excited about it and think that they could be. And then the Browns, at the end of the day, we still have an amazing roster that is literally a coach that needs an
offensive coordinator,
a fresh look on things, and a healthy Baker.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough for everybody to get excited to once again rally the troops.
Yeah.
Give Baker one last year. So we've got a lot of positive things.
Dude, that's why I love you. You're not looking at anything half empty.
No.
You're finding the optimism, the bright side of things.
Even though this beer is empty, it still smells like heaven.
No, I like the positive spin on things. As a Browns, Indians, Cavs fan, you always have to be looking for those silver linings. And there are things to be excited about for sure. And hopefully, I keep saying, if I live long enough, I'll probably see the Indians or Browns win a championship, because the Cavs title was great. But of the three major sports, I would put NBA third on my list. I'm a baseball guy at heart.
Yep.
And I think the Browns would be a very close 1A. But if I could see a Browns or an Indians team win a championship in my lifetime, that would be the cherry on what has been just an unbelievable career and life for me. I've just been so blessed. But I want to see one of those teams hold a parade down East 9th, and we can celebrate.
I would love to watch that from television, because I saw the Cavs, and if the Browns won a Super Bowl, you couldn't pay me.
Yeah, it would.
Unless I wouldn't even want to be on the boat with the players, because they might get carried off out to the new Sherwin-Williams Center.
I'm telling you, it'll be nuts. I can't even imagine how this city responds. Do you know when the Browns won the championship in '64, they did not have a parade? Jim Brown, I interviewed Jim Brown for the Club 46 show that I used to do for the Browns. And we sat down for 2 hours and talked about everything. And I asked him about I said, so what was it like? And he said, we didn't even have a parade. The NFL was a much different thing then. Most guys were thinking about going back to Iowa or Kansas and working at the drugstore or helping dad with the farm or whatever. It wasn't close to what it is now.
Right.
I mean, they were celebrities in their own right, but in 1964, 1963, 60s, early 60s, even into the late 60s.
The NFL hasn't really caught on popularity yet.
No, it hadn't. And
college football was still
it was big. It was big. But the fact that the Browns didn't have a parade when they last won a Super Bowl, he's like, we all kind of flew into Cleveland. There were folks at the airport and, whatever. He was talking about, what had transpired, and days after they would go around town and they were like, hey, you did it. But there was no ticker tape parade like there would be if the Browns win a Super Bowl. I'm telling you, I've tried to let my mind go there, what it would be like, and I can't fully immerse myself in that.
You're a big sports guy, so we'll end this on a trivia question.
Okay, I love trivia.
Yeah, where did the Rams? What city did they win their first championship?
Was it Cleveland?
It was.
Yeah, I thought so.
The Cleveland Rams.
Cleveland Rams. They've been just about every city. They've been Cleveland, St. Louis, Los Angeles.
That's always a fun one to pop at a party.
Yeah,
everyone thinks
Rams.
St. Louis, but no, it's the Cleveland Rams.
Yeah.
And that owner knew that the West Coast is where the future of the NFL was.
Yeah,
he took the team to LA. And then because the Browns were the AAF team and they knew they were coming up and they were going to push them out. So he took this ball, threatened the NFL after winning the championship and said, I'll just get rid of the team. So they made him go and he paid everybody all their traveling expenses to come out to the Rose Bowl. And the first African-American NFL player to get the Rose Bowl lease, they had to sign this guy, I think his name was Washington. He was a USC running back. And he was the first African-American in the NFL. And the only reason was because they had to sign him to get the Rose Bowl lease.
That's incredible.
I like to read books in my free time.
I like that. No, that's wonderful.
Empty beer, big brain.
All right, there you go,
dudes
brother.
and dudettes, Jay, Crawford, Tony Lane. We're both going to say Dude Network. Until next time, folks, from the Dude Cave. See you next time.